Okay, today we're looking at topic 3-2, adding and subtracting decimals. So say I give you some numbers, 1.5 and 0.7, so 1 and 5/10, and I want to add it to 7/10, and I said find the sum of that. Go ahead and pause me and see if you can find the sum of these two numbers, and then hit play again. Okay, when I look at these two numbers, the first thing I probably want to do is estimate to give myself an approximate total. And so I know when I add these up, I'm in the right place, or I have the right answer. So I would look at 1.5, and I'd probably round it to the nearest whole number, which is the ones place. So I'd look at my 5, and I'd say, well, if the numbers of 5 or greater, I'm going to round up. So I would make my 1 a 2. So I'm going to say this is like adding 2 to, I have 7/10, and I could go ahead and change it to a 1, but since it's just a nice easy 7/10, I'll leave it at that. And if I add 2 to 7/10, I know I'm going to get 2 and 7/10. So I know my answer is going to approximately be around that. Okay, so when I'm adding decimals, it's really important for me to do something that has to do with these decimals, and I need to go ahead and line up my decimals. So I would make this 1.5 and my 0.7. Why is it so important that I line up my decimals? Well, if I don't line up my decimals, if I make it 1.5 and I put my 0 and my 7 over here, what am I adding together? Well, I'm adding a whole number of, even though it's a 0, my 0, which is in the whole place, to the 10th place. And I'm adding my 10th place to a 100th place. And we definitely don't want to do that. We want to make sure that we line up the correct place values. So you can see that I have my 10th place lined up to my 10th place. I have my ones place lined up to my ones place, and so that I'm adding the right numbers to the right numbers. Alright, so once we know we're lined up, our decimals are lined up, then we can go ahead and start adding like we normally do, left to right. So 7 plus 5 gives me 12. Carry my 1. 1 plus 0 is 1, plus the 1 I carried is 2, and I just bring my decimal down. So I am very close to 2.7, but my answer, when I add, my correct answer is 2.2. Okay, let's look at the book on page 64. How can you add whole numbers and decimals? Kim and Martin swam 50 meters. Martin took 26 hundredths of a second longer than Kim's. What was Martin's time in the race? So add to find Martin's time. Okay, and it shows here Kim's time is 50.9 seconds, or 50 seconds and 9/10 of a second. Martin's is 26 hundredths of a second longer. So in order to find the sum, first they estimate. So they want to find an approximate answer. 50.9, they go ahead and round to the nearest whole number, the ones place, and they look to the right and see this 9. Well, 9 is going to make me round up and change 50.9 to 51. 26 hundredths, we're going to go ahead and round to the 10th place. Look to the right, that's 6. Well, 5 or higher, you round up, so we round up and make it 3/10. So our estimate is going to be 51 whole, right, and then 3/10. So to find the sum, you make sure, you've got your decimals lined up like we said. 50.9, or 50 and 9/10, has nothing in the hundredths place, but that doesn't matter. Notice how they say annex a 0, so that each place has a digit. 50 and 90 hundredths is the same as 50 and 9/10, because my 0 in the hundredths place just says I have 0 hundredths. And now you can go ahead and add. Alright, as always, we start on the right side and you add your 6 to your 0 to get 6. 9 to 2, now that's 11, so we carry the 1 over here in the tens place over and bring our 1 down. Bring your decimal down. 1 plus the zeros is 1, and 5 plus, there's nothing in this tens place, is 5. So your total, or the time that Martin swam the race in, is 51 and 1600ths seconds. So the sum is close to the estimate, so we know we're on the right track. Okay, let's look at another example on how you can subtract whole numbers and decimals. Asha ran a race in 20.7 seconds. Katie ran the same race 25 seconds or 25 hundredths of a second faster. How fast did Katie run the race? So if Katie ran the same race faster, she ran it in less time. So we need to subtract. So before we subtract 20.7 minus 0.25, estimate, and they go ahead and estimate to the tenths place because that's where the 7 is, and they leave 20.7 the same, rounding this 0.25 to 3.3. So they looked at the 5 here and they said, well, I'm going to go ahead and round that 2 up to a 3. So we have now 20.7, or sorry, not plus, sorry, minus 0.3. So if you take the 0.3 or the 3 tenths away from the 7 tenths, you're going to be left with that 4 tenths, and the 20 stays the same. So let's go ahead and find the difference. When you do the same thing as adding and make sure you line up your decimals. I have 20.7 minus 0.25. And because I have nothing in the hundredths place, they add a 0. So I'm going to take 5 from 0 and I can't. So you go ahead and regroup or borrow from the 7, make it 6, and bring your 10 ones over here. Then you can take 5 from 10, you'll get 5. You can take 2 from 6 to get 4. Bring your decimal down. 0 from 20, 0 from 0 to get 0, and 0 from 2 to get 2, or 0 from 20 to just get 20. So your answer is 20.45, or 20 and 45 hundredths of a second. Okay, let's look at the guided practice problems on page 64 and do the first 3 together. Or I will put them on the board and you pause me, solve it, and then push play again and see what the answer is. So go ahead and pause me. So we're looking at number 1, 5.9 plus 2.7, or 5 and 9 tenths plus 2 and 7 tenths. Let's go ahead and round to the nearest ones place to estimate. I would go ahead and round up to 6 because I have a 9 in the tenths place, and add to that 3 because I have a 7 in the tenths place. So I'm going to round the 2 up to 3, and I'm going to estimate that my answer is going to be about 9. To find out the correct actual answer, I'm going to go ahead and add 5.9 to 2.7. Make sure my decimals are lined up. And add first 9 plus 7, which is 16. Carry my 1. Bring my decimal down. 5 plus 2 is 7, plus 1 is 8. So my answer would be 8.6. Number 2, go ahead and pause me and solve it. And remember to estimate first. So first we're going to estimate, and I'm going to go ahead and look over here to the right of my decimal, and I have a 0. So I'm going to go ahead and estimate this as rounded to 4. And I'm going to take away, and look, I have 2.95, so I have a 9 in my tenths place. Let's round up. So my 1 becomes the 2, and the ones place becomes a 3. So I'm going to estimate that my total is going to be around 1. Let's go ahead and line it up and solve. 4 and 1 hundredths minus 2 and 95 hundredths. All right, so I can't take 5 from 1, and I can't borrow from my 0. So I'm going to come all the way over here to the 3 to take one of the ones away. which makes 10 over here in the tenths, but I'm going to borrow 1 from that, make that 9, so I can add that to my hundredths place. Now I can take 5 from 11 to get 6. I can take 9 from 9 to get 0, bring my decimal down. 2 from 3 is 1. So 1 6/100. Alright, number 3, estimate and solve. Pause me, you try it. Okay, so I'm going to look at 2.57, and I'm going to again round to my ones place. So I look over to the right and I have a 5, so round up to 3. 7.706, I'm looking to the right of my decimal and I have a 7, so I'm going to go ahead and round that 7 up to an 8 here, and I'm going to estimate that my answer is going to be around 11. So let's go ahead and line them up. 2 and 5 57/100ths plus 7 and 706 706 thousandths, and add it. Now I can annex a 0 here. I can just put this 0 because it means I have 0 thousandths, and I can go ahead and add 0 to 6. I'll still get 6. 7 plus 0 is 7. 5 plus 7 is 12. Bring my decimal down, and oops, don't let me forget to carry my 1. 7 plus 2 is 9 plus 1 more would get me 10. Now I'm a little higher than 10, close to 11, but not quite. And remember, an estimate is a close number. It's not going to be exact. So my answer is 10 and 276 thousandths. Alright, so your homework tonight is just to finish guided practice. Do number 4, 5, and 6, and then answer, do you understand number 7? How is adding and subtracting decimals similar to and different from adding and subtracting whole numbers? And don't forget to come to class with a question. See you tomorrow.